and we provide training for HR professionals and company supervisors, and we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through it, but to the company they work for. And we have over 70 divorce coaches that have a very unique perspective on divorce. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce, and they can handle even the highest conflict of cases with compassion and professionalism. Our coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based on their goals and expectations. So if you're an HR benefits manager or an HR benefits provider or consultant, please reach out to us and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we'll be posting a link at the end of this broadcast so that you can go and grab those. And today we're going to be talking about a view from the bench with former Miami-Dade County Family Law Judge Sarah Zabel. Sarah was a Miami-Dade Circuit Court judge, and in her 15 plus years as a judge, she heard cases in the civil division, family, juvenile, criminal division, and the 11th Judicial Circuit Appellate Panel. And she is now the president of Mays Resolutions. It's a statewide, the state of Florida, full-service alternate dispute resolution firm, federal and state court mediations in all areas of dispute, including first-party insurance claims, commercial and residential, homeowner association disputes, medical malpractice, personal injury, wrongful death, maritime, Jones Act, real estate, construction, employment, FLSA, family, business divorces, and foreclosures. Other services that she works on includes global settlement conferences, arbitration, special magistrate, private judge, neutral umpire, and case evaluation and jury consulting. So you can understand why Sarah is such a valuable piece of our training that we have for HR managers and anyone in leadership, so that you can recognize when employees are going through a divorce and how you as a leader can get them the support that they need. And Sarah is an integral part of that training. And if you'd like to get that training for free for your organization, reach out to me because we have it for you. So Sarah, thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. This is so important.
It is. And, you and I have been kind of talking about, the importance of mediation. And you were a family law judge. You were in the courtrooms, literally in the battlefield of where some of the most awful things happen. And I'm certain that you've seen it all. But what would you say for HR managers? What are the three biggest mistakes that you saw in the courtroom that you'd like the employers to know about so that they can help guide their employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole laundry list, but if I go to the top three, and I love what you said, suite of solutions, because it is about resolve. So the top three to look at is that if a family, and I say family because if as you mentioned, going in the trenches and the rabbit holes, I call it. If you're in the court system, you are in the rabbit hole. Sometimes it's hard to get out, right? So I would say from the top, but not in any specific order, is when a family are in court on a continual basis. Mm-hmm. So every single week or almost every day, there's always something. If a judge is getting motion after motion, is it an emergency motion? Is it an urgent motion? And then this family, the father and the mother, who are going through a divorce, if it has to do with children, it may not. A couple can be going through a divorce with no children, or they may have been married for a long time. Their children are all grown up. But I would say really is that when you a highlight is when you know that this family is in court on a constant basis, and those are judges refer to those cases as the special cases. So, and I say this, and it's sad and it's tragic to say that that's the way judges reference these cases, but those cases just, and I would say I would start with that, specifically. Also, when you see people who come in and excuse me, they they can't make decisions, right? And they they come in front of you and they're breaking down, and you can't, as a judge, you make decisions, right? And I'm not gonna, let's not talk about the mediator world, but
Right.
as a judge who makes the ultimate decision, you want to, of course, you're empowered to listen and make those important, informed decisions. But some people who come into court who are so fractured because of what they're going through, and these are functional human beings for the most part, but they come in and they're going through divorce. Doesn't matter if there's children or not. They just cannot function in a courtroom.
Right.
And look, public speaking is the greatest fear of all, but it doesn't matter whatever they're going through, that stress. They can't communicate to the judge, which is very important. What they want, to get this over the threshold, and it's really a barrier. And it really, it's difficult for the judge, and it's not even more difficult and tragic for the people who come into the family court system.
Yeah. I,
Yeah.
I'd love to interject and just say that I agree with you that that is a very, very, very important part of this whole thing. When somebody doesn't know what to say or how to say it, or they're fearful because they're in, you're the authority, you're there to make the decisions about their life. And one of the things that I love the most about what we do is give them some communication strategies going in and prepare them for that moment. And it's so important because you're absolutely right. I see it time after time when people just were not prepared, did not have any coaching on how to handle this. We throw people into the middle of this expecting them to know what to do. Well, how the heck are they supposed to know that? And so having that preparation. So I apologize. You were going to go for a third one.
No, it's true. They become emotionally paralyzed.
Yes.
And it's, just to, echo what you just said. And the third one is pretty much, it's inextricably tied together as a nexus with the first two, is when people who can't, not only communication, but when children, and I'm going to be fact specific to when children are involved, and how they come into a courtroom and they treat other people. And normally these, and maybe it comes to communication or how, but it goes to that emotional paralysis that I was mentioning. Is that I saw it front row view, that I would, and I watch, a judge is responsible to, make sure that they're looking through the whole courtroom, looking at everybody, kind of what's going on. And I would see these people coming into the courtroom, some of them representing themselves, some of them having lawyers. Sometimes one side has a lawyer, the other side doesn't, which is difficult in and of itself. And so as a judge, you always say, well, it's good if they both have lawyers. It's good if they are both pro se. But when one side has a lawyer and the other side is pro se, where they represent themselves, it's difficult because does that, that balance, right? And I think that also covers what I was saying, is that I see people coming in that where the other side may have a lawyer, and you could see how um,
it's not
really,
balanced.
it's not balanced. But then again, the court system is as great as it is, as I don't want to say it's flawed, but you're dealing with human beings, just like everybody sees things through a different lens. When people come into the courtroom who are going through this emotional paralysis, you see their internal struggle. And then what happens is they act out in the courtroom.
Right.
And I mean, not a Jerry Springer moment, although I've seen that, but it and it dovetails into my number two, as I mentioned before, but more so, I've seen people just jump up, scream, and just act, erratically, where they wouldn't normally do that, in their regular life.
Yeah, we
So,
call that a cortisol flood. Cortisol on your brain at those times of incredible stress and hijacking your amygdala makes you say and do things. And we actually have a video of somebody in one of our presentations. It's a woman at the height of her career. She's a pilot, a captain on an airplane, and she absolutely loses it and behaves in ways that she would never in a million years behave. She just simply wouldn't. And that's what the stress of this entire process does to people. It's sad. And I feel like we just so desperately need to change the system.
right. I mean, and just think about what their jobs are, right? You've got a pilot. What
Right.
what about a neurosurgeon?
Exactly. A 100%, or somebody that works at, a company that makes bombs, just those types of things. It's or just your executive assistant that knows every single solitary thing about your business, but it's all in her head or his head, right? How do you handle that? So
Right.
let me ask you,
Oh,
so
I'm sorry.
so you've gone from being in the middle of that battle,
Mhm.
right? Like a really nasty, destructive process. And you went and you chose to go into mediation. So the question that I have for you first is, of all of those things that we just talked about that you see, plus there's a 11 million more, right? That's a formal number. But so many more. What percentage do you think of your cases that actually showed up in your courtroom would have been either handled by mediation or better served in mediation?
Right. And I just wanted to piggyback on what you just said. Besides the executive assistant, the finance person who handles the
Yeah.
numbers, one number, right. So I would say, and I don't know the statistics, but I would say a majority of the cases do settle at some point. Some, always better, before you even, open the door to going into the court system. Always, sometimes when you get started, it depends. That's the catchphrase. It depends, but sometimes, unfortunately, the case gets to the point where it's scheduled for trial, all the litigation has been done, and it's acrimonious, and it's toxic, it's horrible, and on the eve of trial, case is settled. But by the time you get to that, could be 2 years later,
Mhm.
and the whole family, or the everything is destroyed, including somebody's, um, business, the
Life
emotional,
savings, right?
everything implodes. So, but I would say, and I don't know what percentage it is. I don't want to say 75, because I don't want to, quote myself
Right.
on this.
You can get us
But
close.
I would say a good majority of the cases, and I think, this is where, a lot of the family court judges are really, they do their best to try to move the cases, as far as case management, to reach a conclusion, because any divorce, or any, especially where children are involved, being in the court system for too long, you don't want children to grow up in the court system, right? So, but I would say the majority of the cases do settle, not right away, but they do. But there are cases that do go to trial, and because they can't make that conscious decision on their own, and they need that one person to, which is sad, to make the
Yeah.
ultimate decision.
Yeah, that is the worst part. So that takes me to, as somebody that's seen, now you've literally been on both sides of that aisle. Not many people can say that. And you've chosen to make your the next phase of your business and your career in mediation. What do you think the value that mediation brings to the divorce process?
Of course. Well, mediation is an amicable way of resolving dispute. So, what is the court system? The court system is the last place of dispute resolution. It's the rabbit hole. And so you've got the court system all the way up, the appellate courts, and that's a whole nother layer of limbo. What mediation does, mediation, so let me just back up. So what is the court system? So judges, so I'm not talking about the civil court system, which you may have a jury, but in the family court system, judges have control, they have discretion, and they have decision-making powers. So the court, family court, is not only a court of law, because courts, judges have to follow the law, of course, and they're also a court of equity. So equity is another added layer of discretion. Judges, family court judges, have a lot of discretion. What does that mean? That means that the question mark, right? I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody has a crystal ball. And with resolve, you take away the risk, because being in the court system, there is a lot of risk. Time is money, right? It's being in the court system is exhausting, and it's impactful, and it's extraordinary and I'm not saying that in a good way. So
Right.
what mediation does, in a nutshell, mediation takes all that away and gives the people involved in the dispute, in a family case, for example, the ability to be the decision makers. In some respect, it could be cathartic too, but they're the decision makers, not the court system. They're the decision makers, and it's empowering, because ultimately they're the ones that can call it and say, there's finality, there's closure, there's peace of mind. And there's a lot to be said, because going through the court system, there is no guarantee.
Right. Right. You've lost control. You've literally put the control of your life and your children's life into the hands of somebody that does not know you.
That's
Right.
very true. That's a
It,
total, right. The judge is a total stranger, right? And
yeah.
right. And
And
judges, yeah,
there's a saying that in criminal court, you have very bad people on their very best behavior. And in family court, you have very good people on their very worst behavior. So I would imagine that as a judge, as somebody that has this major, what you were referring to earlier, that, I call it having just a come apart, where they do and say things that they would never in their wildest dreams have ever said or done in quote unquote normal life, right? and
right,
and so they're doing these things, and it really makes them look. If I were a judge, I would sit there and go, well, this person doesn't deserve their children.
right.
This
Can you
person,
imagine?
right? Could you
Right,
imagine seeing somebody, and I've seen what you're talking about, where people literally just lose their minds. They just do not, you wouldn't recognize this person for love nor money, and their behavior in that moment in front of the person that's making the decisions about their life and their children sees somebody that is an absolute emotional mess, and says to the judge that that person should not have custody of
right.
their children.
And these people in their daily work life, a lot of them who are in positions of power or control or top executive positions, they're role models, right? They're supposed to be also mentors and everything else. The dysfunction that these people are going through when they're going through the court system and going through the divorce. I mean, I'm going to use the example of a neurosurgeon. Can you imagine, as a patient, um,
You
and
would
what's
it,
right?
it, it's interesting you should say that, because in this video that I'm talking to you about with the captain of this airline, having this absolute come apart, the question that I ask is, would you have gotten off the plane? And I know for a fact I would have. There's not a doubt in my mind that I would have.
Right.
And and the question is, would you want that neurosurgeon to be working on you, going through what he or she has been going through?
100%. Absolutely.
Makes it very scary, which is why, and I'm gonna like pat ourselves on the back here in this process, because we help your employees become just emotionally stable, giving them a baseline that they can then show up in this process as the decent human being that they are, instead of the person that they come across as under this extraordinary stress.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And how does anyone handle stress, right? There are so many things going on, and people are juggling things every day with their life. But to add that huge component of going through a divorce, and to even be able to walk a straight line, and to, like, that emotional support so that you can, um, and I think with that, with the coaching and with the emotional support, and being healthier, that will get you to also resolve. Because if you're in a good place, more likely you'll make the right decision
Right.
for you and your family.
Yeah, when your brain, when everything is way up here and it's spinning out of control, and you have no, like I say, we don't prepare people for what they're about to go. That there's no, until now with us, there's really no course that you could take where it actually takes you through the processes. We teach you legalese, right? We teach you the paperwork. We go through, all of the evidence that you're going to need to bring. But ultimately, this is all to get everybody to calm down and take a breath, so that their behavior and their decision making is aligned with who they are as a human being before all of this started.
Absolutely. Yeah, breathing is so important.
Oh
And
my gosh, take a breath. It's so easy to say and so hard to do.
yeah.
So let me ask you, and this is the last, this is where I struggle the most. And I know that litigation is necessary in some unique cases, right? Um, I would love to see that mediation has a bigger brand, because right now the brand in divorce is, you better get a shark, you better lawyer up. I'm gonna get a bulldog, right? That's the brand of divorce. And I want to add that we have become okay, in quotes here, we have become okay with people's livelihoods and lives being destroyed by this process. It is a cultural thing in this, and if somebody loses their home, loses their business, whatever, it's like, oh, they got a divorce. That can't be acceptable. We can't, it is not only expensive to the couple that's going through it, and of course their children and the generations that follow, but it's also very expensive for our country. We spend over $300 billion a year on social services as a direct result of divorce, between social services and lost productivity at work. So this is a very expensive process in the way that we do it. So what do you think? How can we bring mediation to have as big a brand as that lawyer up litigation?
Right. So, and that's where mediation gives the both sides the ability to be in control, right? And
Right.
look, lawyer of me, I for over 30 years. So I'm not, no disrespect to the lawyers. But sometimes lawyers make a case different, right? And I've been in mediation where it's reasonable, and mediation is about reaching a reasonable conclusion. That's the objective of
Right.
mediation. Not to give everybody what their best day in court, worst day in court, is to get to resolve in a peaceful conclusion. And so I've seen lawyers say, "Oh, you're not going to take that, but that's not your decision," right? And that goes to what you were just saying. I think that where, like, for like in civil cases, there are contracts, agreements where mediation is included in the agreement, that as a dispute resolution alternative in lieu of going into the court system or going through arbitration. And so by having that into an agreement, that it, before it goes into the court system, go choose a mediator, go to mediation first and try and find a peaceful resolution rather than going in the rabbit hole. Or even if you can't resolve everything, if you can resolve most of it and you can narrow the issues, that also closes the gap for not being in the court system and going through that long journey of being in the trenches. And I think that helps too.
Yeah, I think that, so if I want to kind of just wrap a bow around what you just said, which is mediation should be first. Let's get through all of the things, at least at that table, we understand what we can agree upon, and that's handled. And then if there's one, maybe two issues that are left to be litigated, then we spend time and money and effort on those two things.
Absolutely. And finances is a big part, right?
Yes, it always is.
Well, money it's full circle back to what we were talking about is finances, money. But when there are children involved, if you can work out the time sharing issues, that also it brings down the stress level a lot for people, even if they have to go into court regarding the financial part. But children really is just it's I can't I can it speaks volumes to what I see with these people do, functioning human beings, doctors, pilots, accountants, CEOs, all those people from the top, teachers, dean of schools, principals, all those people.
No
And
one is immune.
no one is immune. No one, there's no, right. Joe and Joan Public, nobody is immune. And once that divorce and once that hits you, it really hits you. So where you can resolve it peacefully through the process of mediation, it's a salve for so much, especially for the family, for the workplace, for everyone.
Absolutely. So, Sarah, we're gonna close this up. I do want to remind everybody that we do have SHRM credits for SHRM members, which is the Society for Human Resource Managers. So we have some PDC for you. So grab that link right there. Sarah, let me put your website on there so that people can find you. Where would they go?
Sure, mazeresolutions.com. And we have a team of 4 neutrals to help.
Oh, that's awesome. So I hope that everybody had the opportunity to see what mediation can do for your employees. Have this be their first step into how they end their marriage, and so that we can make this a kinder and gentler process for everybody. Sarah, thank you so much. I'm going to see you when I come back down to South Florida next month. And thank you so much for your time. This was so interesting, and I appreciate you so much. And for everybody else, we will be back in 2 weeks with another LinkedIn Live so we can support your employees as they go through the divorce process. Thanks so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.